I've worked out that there's never too late to change, like, because you think, when you've been hammering yourself for 50 years, you think, what's the point? It's already, all the damage is done. But every day I change, every day I get better.
What was your relationship with the idea of exercise as a younger man?
Oh, I was always pretty fit, even, as a young fella. I mean, even when I first joined coaches, I was playing football all the time. I played soccer a lot. I was a striker. I was a lazy striker, which was, I was one of those guys who always happened to be in the right place at the right time, which is the story of my life, really. But I was an inside forward. I was a soccer player. I boxed. My father was a boxer, so I did boxing as a young man. And so we used to run a lot and work out a lot. When I joined a band, my working out became more club and pub based, and and working with Cold Chisel. But even then, a few years into Cold Chisel, I took up martial arts, and I was doing martial arts. So I was, as hard and as wild as I was also training at the same time. So I've always stayed reasonably fit. I did martial arts for about 10 years during in and around Cold Chisel and my solo career. When I stopped doing martial arts, I actually stopped martial arts because I got really good at it, and I was at the time, a Scotsman with a bad temper and a drinking problem wasn't a good person to have a black belt, so I just thought better off to do, find a more gentle thing to do with my time. So I from there, I sort of, I took up yoga. I did yoga for a long time, which I really like. But obviously, and I played, I played golf and all that sort of stuff. Did lots of walking and swimming. And then as I progressed through that, I found I'd done some injuries to my back through martial arts and jumping around on stage and all that sort of stuff. And so the yoga was becoming difficult. So for quite a long time now, I've been doing Pilates. I have a reformer in my house. And I was doing that for a long time until probably 3 years ago when I started having surgery for my hip, which I couldn't do it. So I haven't been able to do it for about 3 years, but I'm literally in the process of getting back into that now. And over those last 3 years, I've been swimming. So trying to, whenever I'm not being, recovering from surgery, I've been in the water. That's what I really like the idea of swimming because I like the meditative sort of, the motion of it. You're in your own head, there's no distractions. It's only you and you're in there in your mind, so I really enjoy that. So I've always been reasonably fit and considering the lifestyle that I've lived, that's why I've sort of been able to continue to do it for so long.
Yeah.
I think that's what saved my life, really.
Thank you for that. That's quite a lengthy exercise CV you've got there, which we'll dig into a bit. But you mentioned soccer at the start of that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do I recall that body swerve is a soccer term?
Yeah, well, body swerve was a term where you lean one way and then you go the other. So it's just a bit of a sleight of hand sort of thing for if you're trying to pass someone with a soccer ball. But so it was a term for that, and I used to use body swerving. Body swerving was something I used to use socially when I was a young man in Cold Chisel because, like quite often there'd be, hundreds of people, like lots and lots of people who just wanted to get hammered. And you'd say, oh, yeah, I'll meet you at the bar. And then you'd go somewhere else. So you body swerve them.
Very good. Well, that's all of that you just downloaded might be surprising for some people to hear who kind of maybe stereotyped you as this kind of wild man who never really gave much of a damn about his health, but clearly that's not true, and it's not been true for.
Well, I said, I had to do it to survive what I was doing to myself, and living the lifestyle on the road. Really, I remember touring America. I was this is in the 80s, touring, and that was in the height of the wild days, and being in a bus for 5-6 hours overnight, and then being stuck at a venue all day. You just go crazy, and either that or you drink yourself to death. So we would literally arrive, drive overnight in a tour bus, arrive at the ZZ Top, whatever gig they were playing, and then we'd train for 4 hours. We'd get. I had a martial arts, I had a karate instructor with me, who was my good mate of mine, Noel. he came with me, and we would get up and would run miles, would train, would do bag work, would be sparring, would do katas. So I trained hard, but at the same time I was beating myself up in many other ways as well. So it was sort of almost counteracting it. But I think, like I said, I think that was enough that kept me alive during all that time.
Yeah. What
Hmm.
about the more modern term, Jimmy, of well-being? What does that term mean to you in the context of what we're discussing here?
Well, there's fitness and physical fitness and well-being are two different things. I think well-being is a lot more of a state of mind. I think well-being, I think it encompasses part of it's about your body. I think now I'm much more I'm much more in tune with well-being than I am with just fitness. Whereas in those days where I'd be training for 4 hours during the day and then drinking all night. Um, these days it's much more holistic. Over the years I remember there was once again, these are things that kept me alive. There was periods where I tried to look after my mental health, my because I was struggling with it for so long. So I would try to meditate, and which was very difficult for me because I was ADHD and bloody hyperactive and all that sort of stuff. Um, um, and there was a lot of stuff, meditating. One of the things about clearing your head and meditating is that allows you to sort of process other thoughts and other things that you clear space out of you. It's like clearing space out of your hard drive. You clear space out, and then other things can go through, and you can deal with things. There's a lot of stuff I didn't want to have to process and didn't want to have to deal with. So meditating was always difficult for me. But over the years, I think in 1986 or something like that, I started meditating, and I went out. I went to there's a monastery in Bundanoon called the Sanataram Monastery, which is a forest monks, Buddhist Thai Buddhist forest monks. And because of Jane's Thai heritage, she knew of this monastery, and I went out there, and I used to go out there. I used to go out there quite a few nights a week and meditate with the monks. And you go there, and they'd give you Dharma talks where they talk about how to deal with life and how to deal with spirituality and all that sort of stuff. But then we'd meditate for an hour, and I found even just the act of sitting and meditating, helped calm my sort of nervous disposition, and help calm me and take the edge off of my worries. So I did that for a long time in between doing other things. I've sort of done Deepak Chopra is a dear friend of mine. Deepak and I, he used to come to Australia, and I'd go and sing with him at his conventions and things like that. And I'd go to India. I went to India to meditate with Deepak, and I spent a couple of weeks in Goa with Deepak meditating. We ended up meditating 8 hours a day. I've been to his clinic in San Diego, and done yoga and meditated for months on end and stuff like that. So I went to northern Thailand, up to past Chiang Rai, up in the hills, and went and meditated with monks in caves up in the hills. So I've done lots of stuff like that. So I think, unfortunately, I didn't do all these things at the same time. I'd either be doing that, or I'd be training, or I'd be drinking, or I'd be doing this. Nowadays, well-being for me is sort of trying to encompass a bit of all of that stuff at the same time. And I think it is about balance. It's not just about, I don't want to be a monk. I don't want to sit and be a saint or a monk or whatever. But if I can keep a good balance on being social, and being able to eat good food, and socialize with my friends and my family, and not be writing myself off, I think that's all part of well-being. I think well-being is about being balanced.
Hmm.
Mm.
Do you have a meditation practice day to day at the moment?
You know what? I was talking to Jane about it yesterday. I do have to sort of sit back and do it for a while. I find meditating. If you can even sit for 5 minutes, just to set, it sort of centers yourself, and gather your thoughts before you start a day. I think that's a good thing. But in an ideal world, if I can sit for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night, then I'm in good nick. But I don't always do that. But I'm starting to think about doing that more often now. But I even got to the point where, like, touring from around when we recorded Ringside album Cold Chisel, around that time through till today, really, before shows, I'll sit and meditate. It's hard to imagine but it's just I'm gathering my thoughts and my strength and my, centering myself before I hit the stage. And it's not really, it takes about 5 minutes. I just find, if we're in the dressing room and the band's all doing their thing and they're drumming on things and strumming guitars, I'll find a quiet corner and I'll just sit and breathe and think about what I've got to do, and it not really helps me when I walk on stage. And there's times when I even do sort of these I call them micro meditations in between songs. If I'm there and I've got something that I know or it's getting difficult and I'm struggling because I've got a sore throat or something, I just sort of, while there's a guitar solo going on, I'll just think to I'll turn my back to the crowd and I'll just think to myself, close my eyes and go, okay, let's breathe and deep this. And I find it just gives me the strength to get through it.
That all sounds like the case of knowing yourself really well by this point. It all sounds very centered and balanced, like you were saying, to be able
Well, it
to
is
do
about
that in a
balance.
show.
It is about balance, and the thing is, it's a finely balanced thing. And the problem with once you start getting out and doing long tours, and your routine gets upset. I'm really great at home because I can get up in the morning, go and swim. I can get up and go and swim for an hour and come back, and I can go into my gym, or I can get the physio over to work on my leg. So if I'm all organized, but once you're on the road and no, you can't swim this morning, you've got to get up and travel to another city, and it upsets your rhythm. So to do that, you really do have to work on that a lot. So I'm trying to be, notice the interviewers at 3 o'clock in the afternoon as opposed to 9 in the morning when my publicist wanted me to do it, because I like to have the mornings to myself so I can actually get up and do my thing. And if I take my time waking up, if I'm calm, if I start my day that way and I get my exercise, whether it's swimming or gym or whatever I want to do, I'm more focused for the day. And I'm trying to plan my touring around that too. So like if I have to travel to a show, I normally like to travel the day before, so that I'm not rushing on the day of a show. It's not all hectic and then going on stage and the show struggles. I'd like to get there so I can get up in the morning, do a workout, have a good lunch, hit the stage that evening and be ready to kill. So I just try. It's about managing your time as much as managing your everything else.
Very good. Congrats on the new album, by the way, Defiant. I've
Yeah,
heard it a few times and I'm loving it.
yeah, I like it too. I'm really looking forward to playing it.
You're singing beautifully, just as you were on the Chisel tour last year.
Yeah, cheers.
What's your relationship with your voice today, Jimmy?
Well, I think I'm a better singer now. I think I've spoke to you about this before. I think the process of writing all these books has, like particularly the early working class boy, working class man, has allowed me to break down a lot of barriers, a lot of things that were stopping me from dealing with my emotions and dealing with feelings. And I'm not so traumatized anymore. And I think because of writing those stories and writing those, getting that stuff out of, purging myself of all that stuff, it's allowed me to be able to feel and not be overwhelmed by feelings as much. So I think that that allows me to be a better singer, because like as a singer, when you're singing, you want to find those emotions in yourself. And I've said it in the past where, when Don wanted me to be, sing a song, and if he wanted me to be angry, it was really easy for me to be angry. If he wanted me to be scared, it was really easy for me to be scared. But the problem with, if he wanted me to feel love, I could feel love. But the problem with it was I would be overwhelmed by all those feelings, and it would take over. These days now, as a singer, I can tap into those emotions, into those feelings. I can actually use the trauma of the past and things that I've done wrong and right in the past to allow me to access those feelings a lot easier, which makes me a better singer.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Your vocal warm-up method is unique. I've
Mm-hmm.
been lucky enough to walk beside you backstage at a Red Hot
Yes.
Summer Festival show
I
years
don't know if
ago.
I'd say you were lucky, but yes, I know you've
Well,
heard it.
it's unlike anything else I've heard, and it's possibly unique in the world of music. When did you hit upon that particular method as the best way to warm up your voice?
So that's my dog. My dog's warming up. That's Ellie Mae's dog. Listen, I've been doing it for a long time. I think I started doing it. I didn't really warm up much with Cold Chisel. I guess I screamed a bit before. Normally, I used to sing along, but I found that I found that once I started, doing as I got older and doing multiple gigs, I just found that I had to do something, particularly to warm up the top end of my voice, because my show sort of bursts into the show, and I normally start singing at the top of my range from the get go. So I don't really have time to warm it up mid show, So I just say, I've been doing it for 40 years, like really 30, 40 years. And it was something I just found that I started just screaming a bit at first, and prior to getting healthier, I used to, gargle with vodka and then scream, but then when that no longer served me, I started doing it with honey and hot water. And I also use ginger, a hot ginger tea. I also use, there's a seed called pangdahai, which is a Chinese herbal thing, which is you make tea of it, and it's really good for your throat. So I gargle with that, or drink those sort of potions, and then sort of just scream a bit. I don't have to scream as much as I used to, mainly because I'm not doing sort of 7 shows a week anymore. But if I'm doing multiple shows, I'm normally okay for the first couple. But if I'm doing 2 or 3 in a row, then just the third one definitely I'm warming up. I do my screams and stuff like that. But I found I don't have to do it quite as much.
What about on days off? Like you've just done a festival show on the weekend, and
Yeah.
your album shows are coming up, I think, in a few weeks' time. Do you need to do that kind of routine, the warm up method each day, just to kind of keep it warm, or is it kind of warming up to the show itself?
It's pretty good after shows, but normally, like I'll go in, like I can tell, if I'm driving to a gig, I can sing falsetto in the car, and I'll go, oh yeah, I'm missing a few things in the top register here, or this is me. I can just go through some scales as I'm driving to the gig, and when I get there, then I know, oh, I've got to warm this up a bit. I've got to find these notes aren't working, so it's sort of just literally your voice is it's a muscle. There's muscles in there, and if you have them fit, match practice is a really good thing. If you sing at rehearsals, if you sing on the shows, if you I hate to say it, I hate to be the one saying this at my age, but sleep's a really good thing for singers. I never would have said that before, but it's true. Sleep's a good thing for singers. It's a muscle. You got to work it, and then you got to rest it. You got to work it, and you got to rest it. I don't warm down, which is a thing a lot of good singers do. You warm up as much as, and a lot of people say it's important as warming up, but I think because I talk so much, I just that's my warm down.
Gotcha. You played a lot of shows with Cold Chisel last year, and in the latter half of that tour, you were in pain from the temporary hip replacement.
Yeah.
What got you through that? What helped?
Well, I had physios every day. Literally, I had a whole series of exercise. Well, literally, I've got over the last 3 years. 3 years, I had 3 hip replacements, all on the same side. And the first one was really good, but unfortunately for me, I got a staph infection, and it went to my blood, and it went into my hip. And it also went to my heart, and it went to my back. So within 3 years, I had 3 hip replacements, a back surgery, and open heart surgery. And that was most of it due to the staph infection. So once I got that done, the thing anybody who's having surgery, the thing you've got to do is really, you got to pay attention to the doctors. You got to pay attention to the physios. They tell you what to do. I tend to be a bit gung ho, and so I had to really fight myself not to do too much. But I found that there's a series, like I get up in the mornings and I do a series of exercises with bands, rubber bands, and with light weights and stuff like that, until I can get in the water. Swimming was the thing that got me through really most of it. Once I was able to get in the water, then I could work my hip, work my joints, and still get fitness happening. So but cycling's good. I bought a Peloton, which is a good thing, but it's hard work, but it's good. But I much prefer swimming than riding a bike. But doing that, and also the chisel, because I was in so much pain, that chisel tour, I had a physio on tour with us, and I was, and at that point, I'd already got the staph infection in the first hip, and I had it replaced with a temporary hip. And the temporary hip, the ball joint was smaller because they were going to take it out again. And so the problem with that is if I'd have moved or fallen or tripped the wrong way, I could have popped it out very easily, which would have been disastrous, in the middle of a tour. Nothing I could have done. I would have been in hospital. So every night I had the physio strap me. I was strapped up like a mummy. It was really heavily strapped like a football player to keep that hip in place, and also to remind me so that I didn't turn, or jump on it the wrong way. And even in saying that, although it was strapped so severely, I still managed to jump on it a few times, which was, because I forget, but in the middle of singing. And the other thing was, the problem is, it was my left hip. When I sing, I lean on my front foot, and a lot of my weight is on that front foot, and that's how I engage my diaphragm. It's part of it. I've sang like that for 50 years, and so they were trying to get me not to sing like that, which was difficult. So I tried to sing, singing off my right leg, but it's like having your shoes on the wrong feet. So I find myself constantly drifting back and singing on there. So it was a good thing I was strapped up, but the physio sort of got me through that tour, and plus it was so much fun.
It's amazing to hear. I mean, I was lucky enough to catch that tour 3 times, I think, twice in Brisbane, once in the last show at Sydney, and
Yeah.
your performance was so uniformly strong. It's amazing to think that that was all going on backstage behind the scenes, and no punters had a clue, really.
Well, it was pretty incredible. But and the thing is, we got to remember when you do like performance like that, a lot of adrenaline involved, and so I'm nervous from 4 hours, 5 hours before a show, and the closer it gets to the show, the more my adrenaline's running, and by an hour before the show, I felt no pain. I was really, they had to nail me down to strap me up. I was ready to go, and I was fine on stage. I could charge, but as soon as it started, the adrenaline started wearing off. Like the end of the show, when I walk off, it would start to hurt. And so it'd be like at night, I'd go home, I'd be icing it, I'd be hot baths and icing it, a massage, ice packs. And then up the next morning, do the physio, see the physio during the day, get massaged, get strapped, and then ready for the next show. It was the same every day. It was a routine.
Wow. I mean, Jimmy, you've experienced a lot of pain in your life, and you've shared a lot of that with us,
Mhm.
your audience, through your songs, your books, and through interviews like this. What have you learned about managing physical pain, like what you were experiencing during that Chisel tour last year?
They say some people have a high threshold for pain. I think I'm pretty good like that because I can push through when I have to, and I think that's just comes from stubborn Scottish genes. I'm defiant. Hate to say it, but that's one of the reasons why I called the record that. I'm pretty defiant, and I find that if when things hurt, I can tend to push through it, which is a good thing, but it also means you can do yourself an injury if you're not careful. So it's a fine balancing line. I think if you're doing something you love and it's something you need to do and you love to do, you'll find a way to do it. And I think that's for me, like I mean, when I had the temporary hip put in after I got staph infection, they said to me like be 6 months till you sing. I was literally on tour with Cold Chisel in 7 weeks. Yeah, it was pretty intense, and they were all freaking out. But it was just because I had to do it, and I wanted to do it, and the last thing I wanted to do was because it all happened out of my control. Last thing I wanted to do was let all the punters down and the band down. So I just said no. I'm going to get through this. So I just worked hard. Number one is listening to the doctors. So I did everything they said, and as soon as they said you could try and push a little bit harder, I did. But I didn't push too hard too early. You know.
You were quite prolific in posting your updates each day, or Jane was, during your
Mhm.
recovery process. Did seeing the support and encouragement that so many people were giving you during that time help you push through as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I had a lot of great support, and particularly from Jane. Jane's like the best physio in the world. She knows so well, and she's really like because I get up and I tend to do things and I just go, yeah, it's like this, and she go, no, I'm sorry, you have to keep your head a bit straighter this way, and she knows the dynamics and the mechanics of how the exercise should work. So she was really important. Everything I would do, she'd go and straighten my leg this way or turn my ankle this way so that I'd get the best out of the exercise. So it was really important to have someone to do that. And I was lucky enough to have Jane. I had a lot of support from the hospital, from St. Vincent's. Dr. John Rooney, who's the head of orthopedics at St. Vincent's, is a friend of mine. and he did my surgery, and he's actually a singer in a band, so he knew what I was going through. And John used to, his band used to support Cold Chisel in the old days, so it was sort of very unusual, because I'd say, "Oh, you don't understand." He said, "I do understand. Actually, I'm a singer too." So he was very helpful. I think good support, and not to mention, all the, I felt the goodwill from the punters, the stuff that Jane would sort of show me, things on from social media, what people were saying, and encouragement I was getting from fans, and just people who cared, people who didn't know me, but not necessarily music fans, just who thought, I was battling to try and keep on top of things. I felt a lot of encouragement, a lot of love. So that definitely helps.
Mm. How is the new hit feeling on stage, by the way? You've got a few shows under your belt now, I think.
Well, this one I did the first show. I did one the other night, the
Yeah.
Broad Beach, and that was the first show since January, and it was great until it came off, and I've been sore for 2 days, but I've been back in the pool this morning, and I swam like 20 laps of the pool, and I'm feeling a little stiff and sore, but it's good. I think it's going to be, because this is the third hip in the same side. That means there's a lot of scar tissue there. And they just said it's going to take a little longer than normal to I thought I'd be up and all pain gone in 7 weeks, but it's probably going to take another 7 or so. But I'm good. I can time it, and I can loosen it up and exercise, and I know all the right things to do, so that I can get through tours and get through the upcoming shows. I'm really dying to do the Defiant stuff. There's a couple of reasons. One, because I wrote these songs especially for playing live. When I was writing the songs and constructing the record, I was thinking I want to do songs that I can just slot straight in my set. So I'm really looking forward to playing the songs. And the other thing is, a bunch of these songs I wrote while I was sort of lying in the hospital bed. And so I would write lyrics and even melodies into my phone and stuff while I'm thinking, like, this is what I want to get out and do. So the songs mean a lot to me. So I think just the sheer will of wanting to be on tour and wanting to do what I love is gonna help me get through it.
Well, am I correct in thinking that the title track is perhaps the best example of that, being written specifically around that idea of being defiant?
Yeah, well, a lot of the songs have that thing about about not being, that it's not about how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up, and it's about that. It's about being, like, you can hit a brick wall, but if you learn something from it, you can gain from it, and things will be better the next time round. And being in the hospital was, I wasn't defying the doctors. I was working with them, but I was in my mind, I was, defiant in the fact that I knew I wanted to get over this so that I could get out and sing, because that's what I love to do. I wanted to get over this so I could spend time with my family. I didn't want to spend, time limping around and with crutches and shit like that. So yeah, I mean, it's that song's about a lot of things. I mean, there's a thing in there about 50 years on, I haven't had enough. I remember Cold Chisel when we first started playing in 1974, when we were back in Adelaide, when we went back to Adelaide to play. There was we were doing this series of shows in this little pub called the Mansfield Park Hotel. A bit of a rough pub, but it was, right near where I lived. And we did a few shows, and I think we got one of the newspapers came and reviewed like the second or third show we did, and of course I was hoarse by the end of it. And they came out and they said, "This guy, they're a great band, but in 6 months this guy won't have a voice." And I thought, I remember when I was writing the song, I said, I remember that guy. I'm 50 years on, I still haven't had enough. I'm still going strong. So like it's defiant in a way, or that I'm not I'm stubborn, I guess, too, but it's more, I believe in, if you have the strength of will, if you can talk this, convince yourself that you can do it, you can do anything you want. And so I was trying, like they said, I wouldn't be able to, jump around on this and do cultures. I did the tour, and it was great, and I loved it. They said, "Oh, the third hip, you should probably take it easy." I was in swimming after 6 weeks. There was, it's all the things. I know that if I do the right things and I have the right, and having that willpower is about, getting sleep, eating the right food, getting the right massage, getting the right, seeing the physio, not being lazy. So I'm sort of defiant in a good way.
Is there a point of pride or pleasure, perhaps, in defying your doctor's wishes in that way? Not wishes, but your capabilities seem to
Oh
exceed.
yeah, I love the fact that when people say, "I don't think you can do that," and go, "Well, watch me," and that's sort of part of that sort of one of the when I finished with Cold Chisel in 1983. I remember I thought of myself, but people there's people who were saying, "Oh well, nothing you can do can top this," and Cold Chisel finished in 1983, and I remember sitting thinking, right, what am I going to do if I sit around too long? The longer I wait, the more people are going to compare me to Cold Chisel. So I dived in and I did my thing, and I went and I did what I knew best, which was sing, play loud, play hard, play fast. And it was sort of like, this is what I do. And it was sort of, I had blinkers on. I was defiant. I wasn't looking around, wasn't listening to what anybody said. And I found my feet. And that way I found, but if I'd have sat and thought about it and didn't sort of, it wasn't defiant enough. I would have taken all that misinformation in, and I would have waited too long, and I might have doubted myself. I don't have a lot of problems. I don't doubt myself a lot. I mean, I back myself quite a bit because I just feel that if I'm committed, I think that comes from boxing. My dad was a fighter, and it's about if you're going to do something, you commit to it. Then you less chance of things going wrong. But if you go in half-assed, you're going to get injured.
I like that. Your past with alcohol and substance use is well documented.
Mhm.
The guy that I was back then, as you describe it in New Day, the
Yeah.
first single from Defiant. What's your relationship with drugs and alcohol today?
It's a thing that I look at and I wonder how I got through it. I really do. For me, that was a thing because it was so entwined with trauma and pain and childhood abuse and all that sort of stuff. It was something that was even harder to battle than because I thought I could beat anything, and I thought no, drugs will never run me, but they overran my life and took over me. So my relationship with them is it's one of those things where if I start taking drugs now, I'd be gone. It's one would be too many, and not enough at the same time. So I don't do any drugs. Don't take any drugs. I'm even wary of painkillers. When I was in hospital, having heart surgery, they wanted to put me on endo, and after 2 days, I just said no, I don't want it, and I took Panadol. I'm very careful with it. I drink a whiskey very rarely now, just as a toast thing as a Scotsman, but I can't drink it because it's a slippery slope for me as well. So I just feel better in my head and in my heart if I keep away from it.
Mm. And as far as I'm aware, Jimmy, you're not the kind of guy to kind of preach at anyone else about their own
Oh, I
usage.
don't
You
give no, I
know
don't
that
give
you're
a
in
shit what
limits.
anybody else does. And everybody to their own. And listen, and the I think so there's people out there. I've seen people out there who can take drugs and do all that and have a good time and control it and walk away from them. But I see a lot of people who do get damaged by them. If anybody asks me for advice, I'd tell them to avoid it. And anybody asks me, about I used to think it was a sort of a wore as a badge of honor that I drank so much and all that sort of stuff. But I think that was really silly, and I think it was just sort of this you know weird bravado thing that I had about beating my chest and all that sort of stuff because I didn't like who I was, and the more I changed myself, the better I liked myself. But in the end, it just got worse and worse, so I didn't like myself at all. So I think just be very careful. Anybody out there, be careful with them. But everybody's different, And I certainly don't. I'm one of those people. I can be in I like being in parties. People can do what they want. They can take drugs. They can drink. They can do anything they want around me. I won't lecture them, and it doesn't affect me. I don't feel like I'm missing out, or I don't feel like lecturing anybody.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's a couple other topics I want to touch before we finish up. The first is you're a prolific social media user and you regularly post updates about your health and fitness. I wonder if there's an inspirational tilt to these posts sometimes where are you trying to subtly encourage your followers to do the same?
Uh, Not really, but I mean, there's a lot of our fans, because I don't religiously look at the posts and the answers and all that sort of stuff. I put them up, but I don't read all the comments all the time. But but I like to see people who are going, oh, this is good. If I might try this, And I think a lot of people are like me, have been through a lot of stuff in their lives, or they're getting older in their lives, and they see that I can get up and do stuff like get up and swim and go training. People go, oh, that's a good idea because it doesn't hurt. Great, I'm really happy for that. I don't do it to encourage people or to inspire people at all. It's more about this is what I do. And this is really working for me. And still, in a way, it's to let people know who want to come and see shows, who worry about family and things like that. But God knows they've watched me for years. Being so wild, to see that I'm working and doing all I can to make my family, my life, and my family happier and healthier. And so that, if anything, it's that. But more than anything, it's just social media for me is it's a way of just staying connected with people. I think people that, I've always said that I've seen myself just like anybody else. If I was a mechanic, I'd do it the same. I'd still be as enthusiastic as I am about singing. And so I'll just, it's sort of just, it's to let people know that, I have ups, I have downs. Sorry, I'm struggling today. This is I've had a pain. I've got to do this, and people sort of looking, oh yeah, he gets it too. He's the same as me. And I see them and I go, oh, they've done this, and I'll try that. So it's a way of communicating and it's just sharing life's experiences, I guess.
Gotcha. I got a theory, Jimmy. I reckon within the music industry there might be a few younger artists who sometimes open those posts and have a little twinge of either jealousy or shame. After a hard night, they'll open their Instagram and see a photo of you smiling after doing a workout, and they'll think, Jimmy's already way ahead of me today. Let's step it up.
Well, I'm stubborn, like defiant. So even if we're late, if we get like last night, I flew to Melbourne and did Charlie Pickering and I was doing interviews all day, and I was exhausted after touring on the weekend. And I flew back to Sydney, and then I drove to the Highlands and got to bed at about 1:30 last night. And I thought, oh God, I'm tired. I just want to sleep in. But I woke up at sort of 7:30. I went, I've got to swim. Got to get out of bed. Got to go swimming, because if I start my day that way, it'll be a better day. So you do have to sort of push yourself, and if you drag yourself out and start that way, then the day goes easier. And Jane's a bit of an inspiration for me. Jane has this thing where she says, do the hardest thing you got to face in the day first, and then everything's easy. So if the hardest thing is getting out of bed and hitting ice cold water and swimming, do it, because then the rest of the day is easy.
That's a great attitude. That's a good message to have. And maybe the last thing I'll ask you is it fair to say now that at 69 and with a bunch of major operations under your belt in recent years, you're more grateful for the times of good health than at any other point in your life so far?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and I really thankful to all the people, like the hospital. I was critical, quite a few times there with sepsis and staph infection and in my heart and all that. I thought I was going to die a few times there. So I'm really thankful that I had so much care and love, and I'm thankful that we have such great medical care in Australia. Compared to, like, if I was in America, I'd be dead by now. So I'm thankful for that, but I'm also thankful that that you get, I found that I've worked out that there's never too late to change, like, because you think, when you've been hammering yourself for 50 years, you think, what's the point? It's already, all the damage is done. But every day I change, every day I get better, every day I feel better, and every day I'm stronger. So it's never too late to change your habits. It's never too late to change what you do. And it's never too late to pick yourself up and say sorry and move ahead. And and you can make everything better. Might not be the same, but you can always make things better. You can always make a fresh start. And the new day is a song about that. So you can, every day, if you pick yourself up, you can say, I want to change this and make it better. And it might never be the same as it was, or what you wanted, but it can be better.